Don't talk about it, comma, just show them, period. Don't talk about it, comma, just show them, period. Don't talk about it, comma, just show them, period. Yo, what up, Street Hogs? Here, Kim. Right. Quick mountain turbo thoughts. So, this one is basically on the idea that don't just tell them, show them. And I think the reason why this is a good idea is because nice view, huh? Right, the reason I think this is such an interesting idea is that one could try to describe a place with words or through texting and stuff like that, but the big downside is when you try to describe it in words, words are often lacking. And this is where doing videos, GoPro vlogs, getting a GoPro head strap or a chest strap is a good idea, because when you could actually show people something in real life, it actually makes it much more real and relatable. And so even something I'm curious about, I'm like, what's like a day in the life of Kanye West or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk? I mean, I would like to see a first person POV of them, you know, having their morning coffee, or I don't know, are they on email all day? Are they, you know, on their laptop? Are they on their iPhone? Like, I'm even curious, like, the small details, right? Like, does Elon Musk use a laptop, or does he just do everything on his phone? What does he eat? Like, it's actually the curiosity which is what drives me. And I think the reason why this kind of curiosity is coming, because, you know, certainly I want to become as epic and great as Elon Musk or Kanye or Jeff Bezos. And when you kind of show the ordinary behind the scenes things, it makes people seem much more like relatable in a good way. The funniest thing that my niece Amelia said, I don't know, she was like 3 or 4, you know, she was playing with, you know, a Batman Lego thing, and it has the Lego hat, right? And she takes off the mask, and then she's like, oh! And then she looked at it and she said, you know, this is her epiphany: without the mask, he is only a man. Or without the mask, he is just a man. And so this is where it's a good idea to take people's masks off and stuff like that, insofar much as, you know, I do believe in the personal opportunity for the grandeur of all human beings. A nice view, huh? So I personally believe in the grandeur of all human beings, and I think what my personal striving towards is, how can we augment human possibility to the maximum, and to think just beyond ourselves. I mean, I think being selfish, quote unquote selfish, is useful insofar much as selfishness is more honest rather than people trying to be like super duper like selfless. And something I've even discovered is that, you know, this kind of like Nietzsche will to power vibes, is that like a lot of missionaries and people, monks, whatever, who seek to do these more like quote unquote altruistic works, they themselves just want to feel some sort of greatness or superiority or whatever. And so, for example, you know, a lot of Koreans go to Cambodia to do aid work and missionary work, right? And the downside of this is, inherent in that is that you yourself see yourself as a superior race or the group, the caste, and you see all these other individuals as lower than you. Therefore, you feel like the quote unquote white man's burden to educate and civilize them, because either you have a religious duty to do so, or because, you know, you feel guilty otherwise, or, you know, whether you like it or not, it gives you a small surge of power. And that's where the notions of like even quote unquote tragedy porn is kind of a tonic for a lot of people, is that you watch these things or look at the photos or whatever, and you're like, oh, thank God my life is actually not as bad as that person's. Even Nassim Taleb has a funny saying, is that the quickest way to become rich is to move into a poorer neighborhood, and the quickest way to become poor is to move into a rich neighborhood. And so for me, the downsides of thinking about social comparison is that, what if you yourself have no equal and you are incomparable? So for example, myself, you know, my heroes, Elon, Kanye, Jay-Z, Jeff Bezos, whatever, but I would actually not desire to become them or trade places, even if I had $10 trillion. Is that like, I have the personal pride that I could deadlift more than all of them. And to me, that's just like a silly point of pride that I have, and it's something that makes me feel good. And also, I could imagine that I personally have more personal freedom in my life. I'm sure, you know, it's, you know, it's sad. I feel bad for Kanye. You know, like his wife left him and estranged from his kids. You know, I'm sure Jeff Bezos is like checking his billionaires list, and he's like, oh, is Elon richer than me or not? And I'm sure that Elon Musk is in just a horrible health, and his kind of like almost like a messiah figure is that like, oh, Earth is screwed, let us all go to Mars and colonize Mars, because that's the next thing for humans, and also you know, desiring to make humans interplanetary. But for me, like, I like Earth, right? I like I mean, you know, if I had a chance to be on a spaceship to Mars, would I choose so? Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, I like eating meat. It's probably gonna be difficult to eat meat on Mars or on a spaceship. And also, it probably don't make sense to do deadlifts on a spaceship, because you're just gonna waste precious resource energy. And I like samgyeopsal, I like my meats, and beef belly, I like Costco Business Center and stuff like that. So watch out for the mungmungi, okay? And also I like having access to an insanely fast internet Wi-Fi connection. Stuff like that. Even being here in the Korean countryside, or I call it the mountainside, it's quite great. I mean, I like the sunlight, the mountain elevation air. Even the tap water is pretty phenomenal. I feel like I've been having even greater turbo thoughtage while being here than being in the flatlands. And if I had an option of owning the world's nicest McLaren or Lamborghini but be stuck in the Orange County LA suburbs, or live here with my unlimited fast free Wi-Fi, my rock friends, my super fast Wi-Fi. I would actually probably prefer to live here, but philosophically speaking, no place I think should be forever, which means like I think each place should kind of be like a launch pad or a lily pad, like a command center until you're off to the next one, because I think too much time spent in one place leads to stagnation, but at the same time too much uprooting is also not good for you too. So I think if you have the option when you're traveling somewhere or you're living nomadically or being somewhere else, whatever, trying to spend at least 1 month in a place, ideally 2 months plus, is quite good. Like even in Vietnam, the first 3 to 6 months was just kind of getting accustomed to life in Vietnam. And then 6 months to a year into life in Vietnam, that's when I had like my Air Kim Renaissance 2017. Yeah, even now, my time in Cambodia was quite great, quite eye-opening. And I was able to innovate using the trap bar, hex bar, open hex bar, and deadlift 551 pounds. Forget how many kilograms that is. Something that probably wouldn't have been possible in the States because I was still stuck in either thinking about sumo deadlift or mixed grip. Even something I'm thinking about going back to the States is when I try deadlifts, like I was always swinging anti-straps for a long time, but I'm starting to realize even with sumo deadlift, right? I mean, even Hafthor, who deadlifted 502 pounds, he used the figure 8 straps. And I was even thinking about, like, if I'm trying to do a 1 rep max sumo deadlift and I do a mixed grip, right? The leverage is a little bit awkward. Technically, it's better to just keep your arms straight and then pull that way. Or better yet, find a gym with an open hex bar is kind of another life of mine. But anyways, so yeah, and I think the undulation between living in the cool countryside or the mountainside, as I like to call it, and going to the city and, you know, living like semi-nomadically, like I think if you have the option, being able to live in a certain locale for 2 to 3 years and then going off to the next place, I think it's actually a really good idea. Like even, you know, expat families or military folks, it seems like it actually does afford a much more interesting and dynamic lifestyle. Even this one girl that I met, 18-year-old kid, super duper intelligent, knew like 5 languages, and you know, that's something that I aspire for my son Seneca to have. And also things that he loves being in nature. He loves throwing around the rocks. Earlier, before he took a nap, I started doing the rock toss in front of him. He thought it was hilarious. And also the nice thing about being in a non-city, I suppose, is there's like a quadrillion things to look at, right? Like if you try to pick up all the leaves, it would probably take you 100 lifetimes. If you counted all the rocks, Seneca loves throwing the rocks. Also, we've been blessed is that the sun's kind of come out a little bit. In the days where the sun is not here, it's actually pretty cold and miserable. But yeah, anyways, it's hilarious because, you know, I really like the view and the, you know, plant stuff here. But even like after being here for like 3 or 4 days, you kind of get used to the view. You're like, wow, that's so nice, right? Like visitors come to just like jaws drop, right? Now I'm just like, oh, you know, it's pretty nice, you know, whatevs. Even this guy I knew, his name is Ted, he built this epic, you know, super modernist house by the water, by the sea. And I'm like, oh, do you ever get bored of it? He's like, yeah, you just kind of get used to it. So in life we tend to kind of acclimate to everything. I think is a good life thought. Things I am grateful for, you know, being at my mom's house, her Wi-Fi is insanely fast. I feel like even when I was in Cambodia, I was sipping Wi-Fi through a very narrow straw. So now being here, also having my mom's support and stuff like that, like I feel like I've been able to innovate a lot more. And even ironically, being here in the mountainside in Hadong, and there's like 40 people who live in this village, the Wi-Fi is so much faster than I experienced at public Wi-Fi coffee shops in Seoul. Shout out to Ole, O-L-L-E-H. I think it's hello spelled backwards. My mom she don't even have the fastest Wi-Fi plan, but it's just like I can upload a 2 GB video in like 45 seconds. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's pretty cray. Even in the States, if you're one of those lucky people who live in the Google fiber neighborhoods, I don't even know if it's that good. But anyways, the downside of most Koreans, they just use their fast Wi-Fi to consume YouTube. Oops. To consume YouTube and you know, silly entertainment more. But I think that's also the thing with technology and Wi-Fi and stuff like that, is that it's always kind of a double-edged sword, is that you could either use it to your benefit or to your great detriment. And you know, I suppose the difference is maybe having either the intelligence or the fortitude or the practice to do so. Yeah, this is pretty nice. Just like puts Windows Vista to shame, right? And that's something I think too with turbo thoughtage. It seems to make ideal sense to live on an elevated mountainside and have a view into a valley. Like even if you think about like the Oculus Rift virtual room, you're like in this modernist house just like on top of the hill looking at everything. But if you think about like you know, thus spake Zarathustra, Nietzsche vibes, you know, like you become a mountainside hermit, and at a certain point you want to go back to land to, you know, interact and engage with society. You know, I could probably rock toss for the rest of my life, but you know, eventually I would like to go into the gym and do more like powerlifting, hype lifting, as I call it. Things I have been enjoying, like I did earlier, was doing this hill climb or this hill sprint. So essentially any mode of living or any mode of whatever is always a good chance for you to innovate. Also do like this notion of solo entrepreneurship, in which you care less about, you know, depending on other people, their skills, whatever, but you try to yourself figure out, okay, given my limited skills, abilities, how can I maximally innovate whatever I do in my platform, whatever, to take things further, to innovate. Even something that was interesting, I was reading the original Google research paper that was written by Sergey Brin and what's his name, Larry Page. And early on, they both had very rudimentary HTML skills. So that's the reason why Google's home screen search bar, whatever, was so minimalistic. Is not because they're just like, you know, they had like Zen aesthetic. It was just more of a, that's just, they couldn't do much in HTML. Even I think about myself, you know, there's always, every other day I'm like, oh man, I wish I could program and do this. But like things I could do rudimentary HTML. I know how to blog, vlog, write things, and send email newsletters. And so, you know, given now the fact that, you know, Seneca, you know, I have a limited shelf life. Thank God his naps have been more epic. He's been able to nap like 3 hours, and so that I could use that time to do what I really care for. And yeah, and so, you know, moving forward in our life, my big suggestion is, you know, don't wish that you had more time, but just more intelligently leverage that time to your greatest benefit.